When did helping a relative out backfire on you horrendously? I threw my older brother out of my apartment and got him locked behind bars after the heinous things he did to me. I am the fourth child of 6 children in my family. My family is fairly large and somewhat close-knit, but not in a good way. My parents, older siblings and other relatives are extremely controlling. They have sets of rules that one is to follow and abide by. We hardly ever had a life of our own. Growing up, I always felt like I was being pushed around by my family and manipulated by them too. They had this way of controlling every little aspect of my life that seemed even worse than how they controlled my younger siblings and cousins. It was suffocating, to say the least. They didn't care that I was already an adult and was capable of making decisions for myself. It was hard to speak up because they always made sure we felt inferior and small. Sickening, I know. So, one day, I decided I had enough. I gathered courage and packed my bags and left my hometown in Michigan, determined to start a new life on my own terms. I went to New York. It was hard because I have never traveled anywhere on my own again, but I knew I had to do this. And you know what? Things were actually going pretty well. I found a decent job, and made new friends. Life was finally looking up, and I was feeling more in control than ever before. My life was really going great. But then, out of the blue, my older brother decided to pay me a visit. Let's call him Mike. Now, Mike had always been the lazy one in the family. He never really took responsibility for anything, and to be honest, I was a bit apprehensive about having him stay with me. He didn't have a job or any stable relationship other than the toxic one with our family. He was big, slobby and not very clean, and I knew he was here to keep an eye on me. He had no real reason to be in my apartment. Actually, when he first came, he said he came for a visit and wanted to say hello to me. This implied that he came to visit someone else and just wanted to stop by my apartment. You know, till this day I don't know how he even found me, and I wonder if my family put a tracker on me or something, or if one of my cousins snitched. He didn't leave, and after a week, I asked him what his plan was. I told him it was obvious that he was in trouble with money or something, and that he should just tell me the real reason he was here. At first, he played it off like nothing was wrong, but after some prying, he admitted it slowly. I was very conflicted on whether to keep letting him stay or not, but in the end, he is blood, so I decided that I would help him for at most a month or two. And also, I couldn't really say anything but yes anyways. I couldn't defy him, I wasn't bold enough. I found out that that would be the worst decision of my life. At first, it seemed okay, he was just crashing on my couch, but a week after the agreement, I noticed that Mike began disrespecting me in my own home. He'd come and go as he pleased, making a mess and never bothering to clean up after himself. One time, he threw a party in my apartment with a bunch of strangers and junkies. I just came home from walking and stepped into chaos. My living room, my haven of calm, is a complete mess. Furniture knocked around like it had a fight with a hurricane. Cups, plates, and who knows what else are scattered all over. It's like I've stumbled into a crazy party I didn't even sign up for. The people obviously already left and walked past me out of the door. Some part of me is thinking, maybe it's just the living room, so I take a peek in the kitchen. And man, oh man, it's like a war zone. Dishes piled up like they're having a rebellion, and the stench of booze is lingering like a bad hangover. Not what I was expecting, let me tell you. But wait, the plot thickens as I head upstairs. I enter my room, and I'm hit with this wave of shock. Drawers are pulled out like they're trying to escape, clothes strewn all over like they're on strike. Place where I kept my jewelry and a little money, ransacked. Just when I think things can't get any worse, I hear these smoochy sounds coming from somewhere. I follow the noise, and what do I find? My older brother, Mike, is having a full-blown makeout session with a total stranger in my apartment. I didn't know what to think, I didn't know what to say. I felt so insulted and hurt, but he didn't really seem to care. His friend left, and after mumbling something about not wanting it to look like this and a backhanded apology, he strolled out of the apartment, leaving me to clean in tears. Another time, Mike almost made both of us homeless. So, I'm heading home, already thinking about resting in my bed waiting for me. I unlock the door, step inside, and, what's that smell? It's like a mix of burnt toast and something that should never see the light of day. Panic starts creeping up, and I follow my nose to the kitchen. And there it is, the stuff nightmares are made of. Smoke's billowing from the toaster, and my heart's doing the cha-cha. I rush over, yank the plug out of the wall, and cough my lungs out as I try to clear the smoke. My head's spinning, how on earth did this happen? Well, it turns out Mike decided it'd be a grand idea to make himself some toast before heading out. Problem is, he's not exactly the stay and watch the toaster type. Oh no, he slapped those slices in, hit the button, and took off like a tornado. Naturally, I'm fuming. I mean, seriously? Who does that? It's like he's playing a game of let's see how close we can get to burning down the apartment. But wait, there's more. I take a closer look around, and what do I see? A sea of empty chip bags, candy wrappers, and who knows what else scattered like confetti. My kitchen's been turned into a junkyard, and Mike's long gone. I managed to get the place aired out, but the chaos isn't over yet. I head into the living room, and my jaw drops again. The TV's on, volume blaring like a rock concert, and there's a sea of snack wrappers and dirty dishes chilling on the coffee table. It's like a frat party gone rogue. I'm beyond words at this point. I mean, who treats someone's home like this? It's beyond disrespectful, and I can feel my blood boiling. Mike's always been a bit of a tornado, but this is next level madness. This is where it gets more sad, and while the story has been lighthearted from here, I warn you that I will go into the topic of sensual abuse. Mike even started to control my life. He'd criticize my job, my friends, and even how I managed my money. It was like I was back under my family's thumb, and I felt that suffocating grip once again. The fact that I lived away and by myself for a while gave me a little more courage to speak up. I was determined to stand my ground and not let him take over my life like before. I started setting boundaries, telling him that he couldn't just run the show in my own home. It was tough, but I knew I had to do it for my sanity. Mike tried to control me again, to dominate me and make me feel small, but I tried as much as I could to hold my ground, to let go of the fear that had been imprinted in me since I was little, the fear of speaking up against my seniors. Against anyone. One day, my blood was boiling over the whole ordeal while walking about to my apartment, and I knew I couldn't let this slide. When I got back, I looked Mike straight in the eyes and told him to leave. The reaction I expected wasn't good, but it was worse than I expected. He got extremely angry, asking what type of sister I am leaving my brother out in New York City homeless. I then recounted all the horrid things he had done to my place, in turn affecting me. This is when his months of dominating me and scaring me into not telling the seniors took a turn. He used this power against me in his reply, stating that if he really wanted to, he could force me to let him stay there. Starting to get scared, I backed up as the look in his eyes grew even more intense. At the time, I didn't know it, but he was on a huge amount of white powder. For those of you who don't know, white powder can cause extreme anger in someone when they are told very big and bad news. Well, I didn't know this when first approaching him, so I thought he would be way more rational. He wasn't. He started to move over to me, pinning me up against the wall. He groped me several times, asking me how I liked it. His hand covered my mouth and I wasn't even able to yell for help. This is when I realized my brother had truly gone psychotic, and I was fearing for my life. He eventually tied me up in a chair, and duct taped my mouth. When I tell you I thought these were the last moments of my life, I mean it. I was crying profusely while he just ignored me. He then proceeded to break almost all my belongings in the apartment in some way. He broke all of my furniture, my TV, kitchen appliances, even arts and crafts materials I used to work on my hobbies. I watched as my brother broke everything I had worked for to make my apartment my home. It devastated me. The one saving grace from this story, and maybe the reason I am still here today, is a little detail that I haven't mentioned yet. After about 30 to 40 minutes of ranting to me all these crazy types of slurs, we both heard an extremely loud knock at the door. I had a brief moment of mental clarity, and through the shock I had, I remembered I had texted my boyfriend, John, to come over as soon as possible to help out if my brother needed to unpack or if things went south. Well, they did, and while he was a little late, I felt a huge wave of relief wash over me. I knew, in that moment, that I was going to be okay. My brother would not answer the door, asking me who this random guy was calling my name. John wasn't really an old boyfriend, and I had met him about a month ago. I always went to his place because of the embarrassment mine was because of my brother, so my brother didn't even know about him yet. John knew something was wrong inside because he heard my brother yelling and screaming, and heard huge booms. To this day, I still don't understand how none of my neighbors heard these noises, and didn't even investigate to see if something was wrong. John, unable to get in, decided to call the cops. Luckily, since we live in New York City, the NYPD is normally pretty fast to respond to calls, especially in the area I live. The police finally arrived, and while my brother was acting very violent, they managed to break down the door and secure him before he could do anything to me. This event really scarred me, and it took years for me to recover. John was with me every step of the way, and we got married 3 years later. My brother went behind bars immediately, and while I'm not familiar with all the names and charges, let's just say he was locked away for a long time. My family actually reached out to me, and talked to me about everything after learning the news. They told me that they would be disowning my brother, and suggested that I were to do the same. I was kinda dumbfounded when they said that. Of course I would disown him after that, I would be dumb not to. That whole event was around 6 years ago. I am still married to John, and he's the best man I could ever ask for. We now have 2 beaming children, and we moved to upstate New York where we could settle down and have a more calm life than the busy streets of the city. If you are going through similar situations like this in your life, I am here to remind you that you can prevail, and that it doesn't define you. There is always a light at the end of the tunnel. Editor's thoughts. What an L brother Lamau. I was quite sad when I read this story, and maybe you are too. Just remember that if your brother is ever doing something to you like this, you should probably prank him by giving him the boozy fade in his sleep. He will probably be complacent after that. I know I would be.